Hey everyone, it's Ryder from Skip. We've got a great podcast episode for you today with a very special guest, Adam Erhart, former pilot turned marketing guru, marketing expert. He's got a great YouTube following and has helped countless entrepreneurs and small business owners understand marketing fundamentals and how to grow and scale their businesses. But what's really interesting about today's episode is his story and how he got to where he is from flying around billionaires in private jets. So we get into all that. It's a really great episode. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, it's Ryder from Skip. I'm really excited to have Adam joining us today. I'll give a quick intro for you, Adam, but thanks for taking the time, Adam. You've been an entrepreneur for several years, and you were a pilot before that. But the reason we wanted to showcase you today is because you've been doing some amazing things on helping entrepreneurs market their business successfully. So that's the meat. I'd love to hear from you today, how you first started getting into that. By way of background, our audience is small business owners, entrepreneurs. I'll share more about that, but they are looking to grow and scale their businesses because many have received funding, and they need, basically the expertise that you have been putting out there for years now. So welcome, great to have you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. Always happy to chat marketing and business and growth and all the fun stuff. So
yeah, I love getting in. I'm a data guy. I love getting into the nitty gritty. I mean, we can talk about funnels if you want.
Oh man, yeah, we'll be here all day. But yes, yeah, absolutely. So where do you want me to start? Right at the beginning, and
to me your why and that backstory. I mean, would love to hear. We were just talking about before we started recording that you're based in BC. Like I assume that's where you're from originally. Would love to hear.
It is. Yeah, it's been home for a long time. So I had the chance to live and work all over the world, and this was the place. So the second that I sort of was like, all right, well, let's go back somewhere. This is still probably my favorite place to be. So
yeah, and for those of you who don't know, because I haven't mentioned this on our channel, but I had lived in Vancouver for 4 years and spent a lot of time on Vancouver Island and around Victoria. So you're in a great spot.
It's a good spot. Yeah. I've got no complaints. So it's been life's been good. But yeah, I'll give you the backstory. I think what's interesting is anytime you talk to any entrepreneur, there's no streamlined, clear-cut path into this, right? It's like everybody comes at it from a different angle. So it's funny, as I've got to talk about my story, I've heard just as many equally interesting stories. But the quick version is I was originally trained to be a pilot. And so I went to school for business and aviation studies and then went up north to the great white north, the North Pole, flying all kinds of, mostly loading bags. I got to fly very little, but it was mostly just like helping out and paying your dues essentially. And then through luck and fate and all kinds of great things, I was given an opportunity to start flying business jets for the world's rich and famous. So they laid it all out in front of me and they're like, yeah, you're gonna have to jump through all these hoops and do all these things and no guarantee and so on and so forth. But somehow everything worked, managed to pass all the tests and do all the flights and all the check rides went good and ended up getting this amazing job for amazing people and was originally just going to do it for a couple of years and then come back and ended up doing it for 7 years. And it was just absolutely incredible. Like we saw the world, we stayed in the best places, we were paid ridiculously well, like everything was good, but it wasn't for me. And it was really weird to have those conversations with people outside of it because looking in from the outside, it was a dream. It was like the absolute pinnacle of aviation. I was a business jet captain at that point. We had, again, great people, great places we were going to, but I was just not happy. I was like, I just couldn't figure it out. So finally, one day, basically I was like, I got to get out of here. And I called my buddy and I was like, dude, I got to go. And he's like, yeah, we know. And I called my chief pilot and I was like, I got to go. And he's like, yeah, we know. We're kind of like waiting. And I was all right.
Did you do the return flight or did you leave?
Yeah, no, they got me a flight, fortunately. Yeah, we were in like, I don't even remember, somewhere way, way away. So epically other side of the world. And got me a flight, sent me home and everything was good. And I got home and I was like, what am I going to do? I had no idea. And so I asked my wife and I said, well, what should I do? And she's like, you should do marketing. I was like, that's cool. What's marketing? And so she gave me kind of like a quick high level overview of what marketing was. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting, about psychology maybe and some buyer consumer behavior. And so I started learning about it, and I was hooked, like from day one, like that moment. I was like, this is incredible. And I got sort of sucked into the vortex of like, you can make money with words. I was like, I don't have to leave and fly around. Like, this is insane. So I started just diving in, and yeah, really just went to town. Started creating everything that I could, started building websites, and then doing SEO, and then doing ads for them to get more traffic and social. And it just sort of ballooned from there. And that was over 10 years now. So it's been a journey.
That's incredible. And certainly want to dive in there. And of course, how you built that expertise. Well, first of all, yeah, that idea stuck that your wife planted. That's like, I'll go marketing anyway. And but I want to get back there. But I do want to ask about, being a pilot. I mean, I guess just, would love to hear that moment you knew, that inflection point where you thought, it was burnout? Was it the travel? Was it in BC? Maybe it's a combination of those. But yeah, what was that moment?
Yeah, it was. So it's funny. It's like it reached that pinnacle moment where it was like, it was just everything all at once, but it had been a slow burn forever. So what ended up happening is it was truly golden handcuffs, because we were treated very well and we were paid way beyond, like, I'd never made so much money in my life, especially after just graduating. My salary was double what I even thought it was, because it turns out we did a month on and then a month off. And I thought I was only getting paid on the month on. They're like, no, we pay you on the month off too. I was like, this is insanity. So it's like, no wonder I stayed for 7 years. And we ended up moving over to, we lived in Cairo for a bit. We were based out of London and Paris. We flew all around the Middle East. But what ends up happening is you've got a lot of control, but not all of it. And when you're paid that well, when they say come back, you go back. And you're the private pilot for basically some very influential people. And if they need you there, you go. And so it was like, okay, well, that's okay. And then it happens again. And you're like, that's less okay. And then you start, okay, well, now it's not Christmas. Now it's not birthdays. Now it's not friends. And now it's not this. And you work around, and some people are better with it and some people are fine. I wasn't. And it sort of just was like, I just don't love this. And then I would start to dread when I would have to go back to work. So I'd get home, I'd spend about a week acclimatizing to the time zones and settling back into my routine. I'd have a couple weeks to settle, and then I'd spend a week fearing and dreading going back. And then I'd fly all the way back, and we'd repeat the process. And I just started getting more and more homesick. Like, I've always been a homebody, and I don't love to, it's shocking, I don't love to travel. Like, what kind of a pilot doesn't love to, I don't mind going somewhere and like being around friends and family, but like, it was always, and the whole nature of being a pilot is you go. And I always knew, especially sitting in the front of the plane, I was like, I'm never going to get to the back of the plane by being the guy in the front of the plane. Like, there's something here. And I was really lucky. Like, our billionaire clients were sort of like mentors. So they would talk to me, and once in a while I'd sit back with them and they'd share stories, and I'd ask more questions probably than I should have. And they just gave me a ton of information. But it was interesting to sort of look at the mindset differences, and they started to become more prevalent. And then also, if you're ever in a business and you fast forward 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and you look at the people that have been there forever, a lot of them are happy, a lot of them are good, but a lot of them weren't so much. And I was like, I don't want to be there. So something's got to go. And then finally it was, just the culmination of all of that. I was like, this is it. I'm done now.
That's fascinating. I actually didn't think about, being around billionaires, how much you would learn, basically what you like and what you don't like, or basically saying, either some people you want to get there, some people you say, I don't want to emulate you. That's not my goal. And then to ask yourself, what's this all for? Kind of like, and you don't have control over your schedule. You're like, great, but being around that environment, maybe that was your first tribe, probably, kind of being.
Absolutely. It's funny because at the time, I don't think especially I started when I was early 20s. Like, I was just too young and to really be aware of the opportunities that were in front of me. So I learned a lot and I soaked it in, but it was towards the end. I think once I'd been around there for a number of years and was like, all right, he's safe. We can trust him with the goods. It's like, that's when I started to see and appreciate the differences in like how they would approach time and how they would interact and talk with people. We used to have this saying that you could tell, like when we had clients come on board, you could tell the millionaires from the billionaires, because the billionaires, they would come up to the cockpit and they'd bring food and they'd bring stuff and they'd have a chat and they'd be like, what's this? And where are we going? And how's this? And the millionaires, with very broad strokes here, but they would be like, they'd kind of brush you off and they had something to prove and they had a chip on their shoulder and they're like, we're not sure we belong here, so we're going to just treat you a little bit worse. And it was fascinating to see the level of respect that the billionaires had, not just for us as the crew, but to the ground crew and to the support. And when we'd fly into third world countries, how they treat people there. I mean, it was just, I was like, I get it. This is interesting. It's like, these are nice, caring, helpful people. They value their time. They respect their friends. They're good with their kids. There was a lot of stuff kind of got soaked in.
That's fascinating. And to think about when someone's at that level, exactly how they manage their time. That's the most important thing at that point, because right, that if the money doesn't become the issue, it's really how you spend your time, and it allows you to reframe things, right? The chip on your shoulder, that's a natural stage. We all have constraints that force us to, maybe we need to basically think short term instead of long term. If you have $1 billion, it's really just like you're living in the moment, because you should be, because money's not an object. So at least be present and be kind.
Yeah. But there's one situation in particular. We used to have this, like when you had sort of the throttle and how far up you push, and they would be able to look at all the instruments. They had the screens back there and they'd pull them up. And there was this gap between like the black line at the top of the sort of like where we could push the throttle, and this like red line. And then obviously you can't go above it. And what would happen is there was this diminishing returns in speed that you would get by going just that extra like 1 or 2% faster, but it would just burn money. Like it was the most expensive. So we would you never go in that zone. And I remember if we were flying around and we weren't in that zone, like guaranteed I was getting a tap on my shoulder, because they'd be coming up and they'd be like, Adam, we got to go faster. Like we got to push it. Because every second was important. And I was like, I forget the exact amount per hour, but I worked it out one day that to say you're worth $10 billion, like what your time is worth. And it was like this unfathomably large number. So to me, I was like, it doesn't make sense to burn like 30 grand extra an hour or something like that. But I was like, yeah, of course it does. Because I was like, they're going to do a deal that's worth this many billion, or work with these people, or see this person, or there's royalty on the other end, or whatever it was. So yeah, it was interesting. I certainly never valued my time at 100 grand an hour, but it certainly started to shift around, hey, maybe we should be a little more accountable with our time. Maybe we should not waste it here. Maybe we should be accountable and strategic with what we're doing.
That's fascinating. And one of the things I always like to think about is the magnitude difference, right? For a lot of small business owners, right, the first goal is like, hey, get your first 10K for your business, then 100K, then $1 million. So there's that's magnitudes difference, and obviously that's kind of right. But the point of having time freedom is that's interesting. So you never thought about because I do want to get towards some marketing and
marketing stuff.
How you built it, but you never thought, I'm going to go commercial. Commercial be easier. I'll go to WestJet.
No, there was no desire. Like there's especially and not to knock on any commercial guys or whatever it was, but it's like the job that I had was, in my view and in our world, it was the pinnacle. There was nothing better. Like there's just like to go to commercial, and I'd have had to work more, make a fraction of what I was
the whole
making.
Seniority thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Though I'd just have to start at the bottom. Like there was nothing appealing about it. And like we'd be flying, even if we flew good trips, say, I don't know, New York to London or whatever. It's like we were flying into Cannes and Paris and Ibiza and south of Spain and North Africa and parts of the Middle East. Like there was nothing better. Yeah. Like it was the best flying job that ever existed. And I still didn't really want it, which goes to show that if you're in the wrong boat, it's just, there's nothing you can do.
That's interesting. And it's a great lesson for people to reevaluate wherever you're at now. Just a lot of the folks that we've helped over the past few years. My dog is here nudging me again. So
yeah, it's fine. It's walk time.
She heard about flying. Have been people who got EIDL funding through a lot of the U.S. stimulus programs, and I didn't follow all of the Canadian relief programs, but now they're basically looking. So a lot of them, they're looking to grow their business. or they're looking to start for the first time. And especially now, I mean, we can get into the macro economy as well, why this is a great time to start a business. But when your wife told you, hey, have you thought about marketing? And you've built this decade plus career now, how did you start getting into it? Who did you have people around you to help you, or just the internet?
No, I had nothing. Yeah, I had nothing. I didn't even know what it was. So I was freaked out and scared. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just thought I've always been a firm believer in action, like action of some kind. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know that this is the first step. So, I mean, I thought of everything. I was like, maybe I'll go, once I'm done this, maybe I'll go to like law school. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll try that. But so the first thing I did was get some books. The second thing I did is go to local college. And I was like, what do you guys have on marketing? And they're like, yeah, we have a marketing degree and you can do it here. And I was like, done, sign me up. So I signed up. They're fortunately able to port over a bunch of courses from other stuff. So I ended up just like bombing through that, doing 8 or 9 courses a semester in spring school and summer school and working on evenings and weekends and everything. Marketing degree is not necessary, as anyone that has one knows, but I think it was sort of that push that I needed to be like, you need structure. However, what was interesting is that when I was going to school, I was listening to audiobooks before class, and I was reading books in between class, and I was studying and looking online after class. And that's where I started to learn all these things. And I remember I was sitting in a class, and it was a services marketing class. And at the very beginning of it, professor's like, what do you guys want to learn? And I wrote digital marketing, because this is, I don't know, decade ago. And he's going through the answers, and he looks up, he's like, digital marketing. He's like, yeah, me too. And I was like, I might be in the wrong place. I was like, I'm not sure this is the best answer for me. So I was like, okay, cool. I get it. You guys are going to show me basics on positioning, segmentation, targeting, differentiation, but it's going to be up to me to figure out what to post and how to post it and algorithms. It's going to be up to me to figure out how to navigate in this quote unquote new social world. So I sort of took that on myself to be like, all right, well, I'm going to learn more than anybody, and that's going to be my competitive advantage. Because one thing I knew how to do was suffer, and like I can work. So I'm just going to grind. So that was it. And then I figured, okay, well, if we do marketing and it's digital, you probably need a website. So I'm going to learn how to build websites. So that was my first thing. I learned how to build WordPress websites. I learned a bit of the code and HTML and some PHP, all of these things you don't need anymore. And I started building websites for friends and family and anybody that would let me, totally free. And I was like, if you want to give me $50, that's amazing. And I can pay for some hosting. But once I had that, then I started to get people who are like, well, we'll give you a few $100 and we'll give you this and we'll give you that. So, okay, now I can eat. And then I was like, well, we need traffic to the website. We're going to need SEO. So I started learning SEO. So I was like, all right, well, what do we need? We need links. And at that time we can get a little geeky, but we're using like PBNs and all kinds of like gray hat stuff to link farms and things like that. But it worked like crazy. So we did all that. And then I was like, okay, well, now we need social to like give us even more content. So we learned about that. And then how do we use ads? And a lot of people were scared of ads when Facebook ads first came out and they didn't want to do it. But I was like, this looks like a land grab to me. So I spent a few bucks and made a few bucks back. And then we just took over. And I think it was my transition into Facebook ads that really like took off my career. That's when I sort of established myself and built a reputation. It's really when I started focusing on more ads, because I was able to make people a whole lot more money.
That's fascinating to have that, which is the natural evolution, by the way, is we're the starting point to like the growth engine. Yeah. And the growth engine often does, when at scale, and you look at any large company now, when they're at scale, it's the paid ads, right? But it's like, what's everything you can do before you get to paid, and obviously a lot of other things.
Tons of things. Yeah. Way too many people go to paid ads way too soon. It's like, you don't need them yet. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think I want to get back to that and the kind of organic and for people getting started. But, I love the fact that you learned how to build websites yourself. I did the same thing as I mentioned just before. My first company was when I was living in Vancouver, and I was like working in the evenings to figure this out. Okay, learn everything. There were some meetup groups. I was fortunate in Vancouver. There were meetups. Yeah. The burgeoning tech scene was growing there, but a lot was online, and I learned it all myself. And that's a foundation for a lot of people. Even in the evenings, right? Even if we have full-time jobs, and I did have a full-time job, learning that in the evenings, it gives you so much more power. And the reason I like to emphasize that a lot is because a lot of the folks we talk to don't have a website. I forget when we did a survey a few months ago, it was like 20-30% of folks that don't have a website. And then probably another 20 or 30% do, but really they don't do anything with it. It is basically a landing page.
Right.
And there's like a few basic tips in there. And I know one of the coolest things on your website, which we're going to link to also, is the cheat sheet that you've put together. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. You gotta have a lead magnet. Yeah. To email. Yeah. There's fundamental pieces, right, that work for every business. So
yeah, actually this is interesting because kind of back to the BC roots, because you're there, one of the first principles. I'd love to hear kind of what you think are some of the first foundational things to do. But I remember it was like, get an email address is like, and around that time, so many lists, so many of the, even around the lean startup methodology was get the email. And even now when you talk about like, well, Mr. Beast has how many followers on YouTube? 50 million maybe, but
it's up there.
It's up there, something like that. Maybe we'll get there. Talk about magnitudes.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. That's next step.
You get there. But it's like, okay. And he trusts the YouTube as a platform, as distribution, but the point is, and it's like, man, if he had 50 million emails, and he's kind of leveraged this to build other brands and businesses, but the power of being able to communicate with your user, whatever third party, whatever platform you use. So that's a principle that I've always, I guess, kind of found myself coming back to, especially when you're using social media.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer. It's like me and email is my number one go-to tool by far, full stop, period. In fact, it's like my secret weapon if and when, and I rarely work one-on-one with clients, but when I do, the easiest lever for me to pull is email. Always. It's literally the first place I go, and I'll look at their email and they either don't have one, or if they have one, it's not great. And if they have even a great one, we'll increase the frequency and switch up how it is. And it's the closest thing I've ever found to a money-making machine. It sounds really hyperbolic and internet marketing-y to be like, send an email and make money. But if you do it right and you set it up the right way, there's nothing that even comes close. Yeah, even today. It's like, I almost tried to get away from it like 5 years ago, because I was like, no, it's good. We got to find something else. It's got to be a new cool thing. And I kept it running and we kept doing it. And I was like, man, it still beats the pants off everything. Like nothing comes close. Yeah. And then like Instagram comes in and changes their algorithm and wipes a bunch of people out, or the Facebook apocalypse wipes a bunch of people out, and people are freaking out and they're losing their businesses, except for all of those who have their email list that they can maintain communication. They can pivot to different channels. It's a non-negotiable in my books.
Absolutely. So hopefully that resonates with everyone, to that one's principle. I'm curious, what are some of the other things that you tried? I mean, now we can talk about YouTube, since you have such a strong presence on YouTube, and obviously the ability to build trust depends on your market. But what were some of the other things that you were like, oh, let's wonder if these channels have a good ROI?
Oh man, Ryder, all of them. I did everything. I think as like, so as like a totally admitted marketing nerd, like I love it. So I tried everything. Like I think the first early success I had was actually on Twitter. And I just went to town trying to build up a following there. And I don't know, I'm very inactive there now, but in the early days, it brought in leads and clients and sales. So that was really interesting at the time. And now it's not my biggest driver by even a fraction, but man, direct mail. I tried local networking. I tried obviously all of the paid ads that they would let me spend money on. SEO was huge. Local wise, like for the business, SEO built my first agency by far. Like that was the thing. I figured out how to sort of take top spots in Vancouver and Victoria. And it was just like overnight made, again, more money than I'd ever had before, just by sort of taking those positions. So that became really interesting. And then I kind of got combination of bored and scared at the same time of like, I don't really have any control of this either. And that was like the pivot to Facebook ads. But then, Facebook ads and Instagram ads, YouTube ads, I don't mind. But for me, that organic content is sort of the driver. So for me, it started with blogging. It moved a little bit into YouTube as I was sort of dabbling, and then also a podcast. And then it moved more full-time into YouTube as that one basically proved itself as like, all right, this is the channel, and this is where natural skill sets and interest and your audience seems to like everything lined up perfect Venn diagram style. So that's where I started to double down more and more.
That's great. And back to that blogging piece. I mean, for starting out, and that's the easiest way to start it when you're leveraging your own time and your own hustle. Depending on what industry you're in. I mean, a lot of the folks that we help at Skip have businesses, they've had brick and mortars, and they're trying to think for the first time, how do I need a website? The answer is yes.
Yes, always.
But I mean, a lot of people leverage reviews, and the review sites go far, and the Google listings, but just to have that listing, so when someone is searching, that pops up at a baseline, and that can be as cheap as $10 a month. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's that's another. I should have said that's a non-negotiable, but I thought it was like with being kind. I was like, that one, where we're at right now, that's kind of obvious. Like, we should not be having a conversation about whether we need a website or not. This
even on calls. I had a couple calls earlier when we have a great team, and I had to ask people, oh, have you thought about a website? And they're like, yeah, but, and they're like, so
right.
I mean, it would be. Yeah.
If you don't have a website, that's fine. Like but you better be making a conscious decision to not do it and be okay with sacrificing all of the money that you're losing by not having one. Full stop. Like I wouldn't even, whatever you're making now, you can just cut it in, like you're cutting it in half of where it would be, and probably more, because I promise you, everybody is looking for you. And when they don't find you, even if they find you on review sites, it just does not matter. They need a place where there's like, this person is legit and not going to steal my money. And it's like, you just, I don't know. We could beat that point up more, but I think enough said.
Well, no, absolutely. It's worth harping on a little bit, because even, for we have gotten people mostly at that funding stage, and even lenders, they say, okay, we want to check a few things. Some don't do their due diligence, but we want to say, okay, great. Yeah. We check your credit score. We check your business history. Do you have a web presence? I mean, that's like basic kind of company diligence. And so they're like, private lenders would care about that more, but absolutely. I guess kind of broad strokes. I mean, when you think about the future, I mean, I love this time. I mean, we're coming out of pandemic. It's, difficult for millions of businesses in the US here. There's 30 million small businesses. I think there's going to be 5 million created this year. There's a record number last year. I think those trends are similar in Canada, no doubt. I imagine there's this like, can everyone has dreams and passions. Why can't we all think of ourselves as the ability to put up a website at a minimum and maybe start your side hustle or start your passion? But I just imagine this type of future. When you think about your work educating millions of marketers, what do you look forward to in 1 year down the road, 5 years down the road?
Yeah, like for the people that are starting businesses, or for myself personally?
Both. Yeah, but we can start with the people starting businesses. Your goals for them.
Yeah, my goals for them is so many goals, Ryder. So many goals. It's like, I think the big one is being, I wish there was a nicer word, but it's like being realistic with what is going to be required to succeed in this environment. So there's immediate disqualifiers for me. So it's like, if someone says that I don't think I need a website or something like that, I'm like, well, then don't start a business. It's like, because if you're not willing to do that, everything else that you're going to need to do is infinitely harder than that simple process. So I was like, okay, cool. So let's just say I'm willing to do it. I've got the business. I'll do the website thing, etc. Next is like, all right, you've got to identify which social platforms you're going to learn and ideally master, or at least be active and present on. Not all of them. You don't need to be the weird ones. You don't need to do any weird dances. There's none of this stuff like that. Like, all of that is completely optional and up to you. But there are a few that you've got to be active and present on. And there's a kind of content now, like it or not, it is the present and it's the future and it's not going away. And that's video. So I love blogging. I love writing. I'm a better writer than I am on video. I love podcasting. Audio is amazing. There's probably no better way to build that long-term trust than with podcasts, because you're in someone's ear. They're typically driving or somewhere that they can't have it. But they have limited discoverability. So you've got to have kind of an audience to get found. And video, every platform is moving more that way. They have been since like 2017, but now it's becoming aggressive and they're not shy about it. Like before, they used to kind of sneak it in and be like, we have this new feature, you should try it out. And now they're basically wiping all text and images and everything else off the platforms. And if you don't have video, you won't get seen. And a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs are seeing that and freaking out a bit. And they say, well, I don't want to do video. And it's because they have these notions of Hollywood level productions. So they're thinking of multi-million-dollar things. I need a $100,000 office and I need this super top of the line camera that I'm ever going to figure out. And the reality is you just have to start, and you can start with your phone, but you've got to make video content. And if you're not, again, then probably don't be in business, or find someone that can and do it well.
Well said. And so tell me about your first few videos, because I have stories about what kind of that bias towards action and just diving in and taking that leap.
Yeah, my first few videos are horrific. They're so bad. They're just like, I borrowed my dad's video camera. I couldn't figure out the focus, so I'm out of focus. I couldn't figure out the microphone, so it only comes out of one ear. I was sweating so bad I had to change shirts because I was just like unbelievably nervous. But fortunately, you can't tell as bad because it's so blurry. It's 3 minutes. I edited it myself for like 4 hours to try to get it to there, and with some basic iMovie. Like everything was bad. And so I did that for, I think, 5 videos. And then I realized, I was like, man, I'm very bad at this. Like, this is not even passable. So I hired a buddy of mine to come in, and he set everything up and he filmed a bunch of stuff. And I was even sweatier because I was even more nervous because now someone's watching me do it all. And then slowly but surely, I just got a tiny bit better each time. Mm-hmm. So it's like just a little bit better. And maybe this time I'll try to not freak out so much. And maybe this time I'll get a better light so you can actually see me. And maybe this time I'll borrow a microphone so you can hear me. And then maybe I'll figure out how to make it this way. And it was this slow progression. It wasn't fast, and I did everything wrong. And there's probably better ways to do it, but I certainly don't regret it now. And now I think we've got a decent system.
Absolutely. But hopefully a lot of people can think about that for themselves. I mean, right. And it comes down to what you're talking about. And I mean, there's some principles like people need to be able to hear you at a minimum.
Right. Yeah. There's the basics.
But even then, I mean, I remember doing, I was even up until recently, I mean, it's kind of shooting videos as I drove across the country with my dog and staying in a Motel 6 that was very echoey. Yeah. And so there's reverberations, and it's like, but I was talking about something that people cared about. And so, there's so much information. And I always like to say this, right? There's a lot of problems that exist in the world. There's a lot of education that's not being answered. I mean, there's expertise that everyone has. And so it's just, I mean, this is basic stuff, but just kind of find that, and there will be an audience, and and you can improve over time. I do like the point about consistency as well. I mean, talk about that when you're first talking to helping folks, the importance, I mean, how important is that as a principle for you?
Yeah, well, it's everything, right? Like for your audience, because they'll come to know and trust you, but also for the algorithms. So I tend not to like to pander to the algorithms too much and try to give them what they want, but it's important to understand what I'm going to need to do to get them to work with them, not against them. And they're not shy, again, about what they want. It's like they want stuff, and they want more of it, and they want stuff that people like, so they can show it to them, so they can run more ads on your stuff and they make more money. And so it's like you give the people what they want. But it's odd to me that an entrepreneur and a business owner would understand that a business takes work and effort and sacrifice and all that. They get that. That's totally clear. They're like, yeah, I know it. And yet when it comes time to create content, there's this weird thought of like, I'm going to make one post, and if I don't go viral, hell with the whole system. Like, it's all flawed and it hates me and it doesn't work. It's like you need way more than you think. So the secret is to find a system that allows you to operate from your strengths and to leverage the strengths of others if you do have a team that you can lean on. But what is going to allow you to be consistent with that content? And we can talk about what consistent means depending on the platform and depending on the industry and market and all that. But the point is that you can't show up once and go away. Same thing, I've got a big pet peeve with email. So when people do email marketing and they do it once every 2 weeks or once a month, forget it. Like, why are you even doing it? Even once a week is pushing it for not enough, because if you look at, say, a 30% open rate, well, we're looking at like 3 weeks since someone's heard you. They see from you, they don't know who you are, they mark you as spam. And that's the reason that we've got to find a way to start incorporating this into daily work life. I don't think you need to be an open book with all your personal stuff, but yeah, you've got to find a way to make a lot more stuff. There's tons of opportunity
to create and
to share.
Distribute. Yeah. Create and distribute. Yeah. Absolutely. And getting that rhythm, and so many folks that I've talked to, and probably the same for you, you get that rhythm down. You're not having to, the mental lift isn't there to be like, oh, what are you going to do? At 10 a.m. I shoot a video, or 7 a.m. or whatever. You just do it. And then it becomes that daily habit.
Very much. Content's a muscle. It's like the first time you go to the gym in like a new city and you're awkward and you don't know anyone and everybody has their routine, you kind of fit in and you don't feel, it's like, oh, it's horrible, but you go. And then the next time it's a little better and someone nods at you and you're like, all right, this is going to be okay. And then finally someone talks to you, like, all right, you settle in a bit more. It's the same with content. It's like those early days, I won't sugarcoat it. They suck. It's like, it's not fun. I feel for you. I'm so sorry. But you got to go through it. Like, there's no other way. You've got to sit there. And the advice that I use is like, you can either create content or you can do nothing. Mm-hmm. That's it. Like those are the only two options for this hour. And sure enough, after 5 minutes, you're gonna write something, and then you might film it, you might whatever it is. But yeah, if you don't do it and you let yourself slip, forget it. It's over. It's too easy not to.
Absolutely. Do you, one of the things that I often see missing is, okay, people have that starting point. They start building that habit. They may not know, they may not be in the position where, you saw the Billionaires, you were on the plane with the Billionaires, you saw what their life was like, basically when you have 6 zeros and 7 zeros, right? I don't even know how many numbers zeros go. One of the things that's really interesting to think about, trying to think ahead. A lot of entrepreneurs are venturing into the unknown. You don't really know. If you're consistent, you're doing things that you enjoy, you can stick with it. Mm-hmm. How do you help people frame, okay, 1 year, what's a realistic goal? 2 year, 5 years? How do you help people kind of put together a realistic path?
Yeah. So I think there's two sides to the question. The first of which is if we're talking about a business plan and strategy and things like that, then there's a ton of factors that come into play, including their market and their industry and where they're at right now and how far along they are in their sales and what they've done up till now and where the market's going and what the total addressable market is and all kinds of economic factors. There's so much that goes into it. It's hard to say this is where we're going to be at now. Now there's exceptions. For example, if we've got a business that comes in and they're doing, 10 million a year, and they've got a garbage email marketing system and they're in whatever business, and I can look at it, I can be like, oh, there's 2 mil sitting there guaranteed, like in the next 6 months, because you haven't done that, we can leverage it. So we'll increase that. If they haven't run paid ads, but they have a solid offer and their cost per acquisition in other channels is, $20 and they're selling something for 50, cool. I can now run paid ads and I know we're going to get XYZ depending on dollars. Where things get trickier is startups and content and different platforms. So what happens is I'm a huge proponent of the long game and finding something that you can do enjoyably and sustainably for a long period of time. And then it's a question of making sure that you're doing the right steps that put you in the best position for good things to happen. So my YouTube channel is probably the perfect example of something that never blew up overnight. So I've got 5-6 years there, 550 plus videos. None of them ever went viral, not one. They all just went a slow burn on this one. But then sure enough, I was just stacking chips. Mm-hmm. So what ends up happening is this video will get 10 views a day, and that one gets 10 views a day, and that one gets 5 views a day, and that gets 1 video a day, but that one gets 100 views a day, and that one gets 1,000 views a day on that one. And what ends up happening is over 550 videos, you start racking up a lot of views, and it just compounds, and then people get in. So it's we have to look at all of this as we're kind of building a library of content. And that's why I'm so bullish on YouTube, opposed to say Instagram and Facebook and things like that, where they have such a short shelf life for content. It's why I still like blogs, why I like podcasts, because now we've got a library that people can reference back through. But it's like you can expedite the time with effort and content. So if you're doing, let's use YouTube as an example. If you're doing one video a week, well, that's only 52 videos at the end of the year, which I appreciate is still a decent amount, but it's like, we're probably looking at about 100 videos that we want to get to before we start seeing, is this working? Am I in the right spot? Well, if we do 2 a week, we're now at 6 months. And if, I don't know, if some crazy person decided to do 4 a week, you do that in 3 months. So now it's like in 90 days, you could almost transform your entire business, which is phenomenal. I mean, these are opportunities that I didn't even have a decade ago. So yeah, it's how bad do you want it? How much are you willing to sort of go through the unnecessary or the necessary discomfort in the early stages?
Well said. And yeah, on those slogging through those videos, you have a lot of great evergreen videos, which is back to building that library over time.
Yeah.
Which is great. You know, one of the things that works for some YouTubers, and we leaned on a lot of over the past couple of years, is more let's say just not evergreen, because it's I'm talking about a specific policy decision, and that affects 1 million borrowers or something like that. But it's fine. Yeah. I mean, those are quick, as in like I'm coming on to report the news and to do my hot takes. But I certainly like the depth of knowledge. I mean, in folks that you put out is great, because once someone finds one piece that they like, one piece of content, then it opens the gateway to like, this is great. I trust this guy. And I think your point on the long game is just and compounding efforts, those 5-10 years is great. One of the humps that I often see is helping people have the ability to have a long-term view, because that's not a reality for most people. And it's like you're forced to think weekly for your business and monthly. So it's kind of what's going to drive near-term ROI, not what compounds in 6 months. So I get that's just a natural tension that everyone you talk to, when they say, okay, I want a marketing miracle. Well, if you want a marketing miracle, then I don't know.
Roll the dice, buy a lottery ticket. I don't know.
Or blow all your money on paid, but don't. I mean,
even then,
even then,
it's like I guess let's get real here. Let's be real. When I see someone like that, and that was me in the early days too. It's like I wanted the miracles. I wanted anything to happen, but it was such naive at best, and definitely an immature point of view to the world of business and how things work. And so it was me wanting things to be quick and easy. And as we all know, if it's easy, then everyone would do it, and then they don't, et cetera, et cetera. Billionaires aside, millionaires, let's talk about business owners and entrepreneurs and things like that. I was also fortunate to get to be friends with them in the early stages, and they all had that long-term perspective, all of them. And they were all there, and they were compounding it year over year, after 5 years, after 10 years, after 15 years. And essentially their advice to me was like, yeah, just eat dirt for like 5 years and grind and take nothing and put everything back in the business. And you're going to do awesome. It'll be great. But if you don't, it's going to be terrible. And so it was hard to hear and hard to take. And sure enough, that's kind of what I did. Like my first 5 years I did fine. But it was not like amazing. And then finally I was able to cash in all the chips and all the goodwill and all the relationships and all of everything that I built, was able to just pivot that and to turn it into a decent amount of revenue. So yeah, I don't know, when someone looks for a miracle, I send them to someone else and I say, I wish you the best. I'm going to send you good vibes, but it ain't looking good.
That's good. Well, that's really a great point. What did you do to switch your mindset? So you grind for so long. If you're scrappy for so long, a lot of this, you have to put in the sweat and the equity. Yes, you can work smarter, but a lot of it is just pure determination. And then when you get to that point, it's kind of knowing when you're, let's say, over some of those hurdles, like you're not going to go out of business, right? So like you have that's a tough thing. It kind of, I mean, I see that. I think about that all the time. Not never being, never feeling comfortable, but kind of shifting your mindset so you can start to think, okay, I don't need to think about this month per se, but I can think about the quarter.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to say, to switch your mindset there?
Yeah. So I think I switched my mindset before it sounds like such a floofy new age thing to say or whatever.
Right.
But it's like,
we don't need to say like, there's a lot of mindset gurus out there, but
yeah, exactly. That wasn't me. I was like the just work or I have to go back flying thing. I was none of that. For me, I think it was like, I understood the logic and the strategy behind it. So I was like, that makes sense. I'm going to do that, because the alternative doesn't make sense of like living short term, thinking of these things. Like none of that made sense. It's not how we operated in aviation. It's not how the clients that I had operated. Like no one thinks like that. All the successful people had this longer term vision for what they wanted to do and accomplish. And I knew that if I did the right things at the right time for the right people, it would, like, the odds were good that it was going to work out better than had I not done it. So that was sort of step one. And then, really, it was just sort of a collection of stacking chips. And then really, once you reach that level of success, I don't know if the fear ever goes away. It just changes. So someone told me it's like money problems never stop. They just switch. So when I never had money, I was like, how do I get money? And then as soon as I had money, I was like, how do I not lose money? And then as soon as you have lots of money, you're like, how do I grow it at the same rate as everybody else? And so it's like, there's always something to be concerned about or work on. But I think that's just sort of part of the evolution that we're going through. But the worst advice is to focus on some short-term hack, trick, quick win in sacrificing the greater good.
Absolutely. And the long-term, we're seeing that a lot with a lot of the, I don't want to talk about, like crypto broad strokes, but, we see a lot of kind of just in the boom times. It's not about crypto per se, but just to say that a lot of like tourist entrepreneurs came in who were looking for quick markups or quick wins, and weren't in it to say, oh, I want my business to be around in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. I want to have a legacy. I want to pass this on to someone else, or, everyone has different business goals, but to be able to think like, this is not a get rich quick. This is long-term value, and to make a positive impact on people's lives. So,
I mean, if you want the get rich quick thing, there's stuff out there. And so it's like, it's really easy for me. It's like the amount of money that is available that I could have made by pursuing things that were not of interest to me is staggeringly high. Like there are tons of opportunities in all kinds of different drop shipping and e-commerce and crypto and all, whatever the latest hot thing is. There's tons of that, but it just didn't line up with what I wanted. Now, when someone comes to me and that's what they want, I just say, fantastic. I can't help you because I don't want to, and I don't know it, and it's not my area. But if you've got, hey, look, I want to build something that means something to me, and I'm willing to put in the work, but I'm expecting rewards at some point. It's not like kind of making this sound like we're just going to suffer and never get anything back. I was like, the whole point of marketing is to make money. Like that's why we're doing business, is to generate a profit, to earn something. So you better be expecting a payout at some day. But if you're unrealistic with it, or the intentions are wrong, or whatever it is, there's a lot of people that are there to take advantage of that mindset. And I think that's the problem, is that if you kind of hop from those kind of opportunities, they're typically being presented by other opportunity hoppers. And there's these famous internet memes where it's like, last week I was a life coach. This week I've got a crypto business. Next week it's NFTs. Then I'm after the metaverse. So like whatever that thing is. And you see it a lot. So yeah.
And I don't know how much of this is generational. I think you're millennial, and but I wonder how much of that is like for, not to bring in generational things, but certainly that's been a trend, kind of, or at least a memeable trend. But
it's definitely a memeable trend. Yeah. And we've seen it as well. And so I've seen like I'm kind of on the tail end of it, the elder millennial spectrum. So it's been interesting because just where I grew up, born in the early 80s, it's like sort of a bit of both generations. And I think the way that I was raised as well as a portion of it, was raised relatively strict with very high standards and things like that. But it was also part of that is personality driven. So I've always been more of a hyper overachiever and things like that. So I think you've got to be self-aware and you've got to look at what you want to do. And then I think you have to be realistic with your strengths and limitations and the opportunities that the market's presenting. And just know that nothing's as good as it sounds. So those, whether it's crypto or drop shipping or e-com or Shopify stores or like whatever you want to do, they're amazing. And I've got friends in all of them that are very wealthy and they're doing phenomenally well, but it's not for me. And it lines up with none of my skill sets. So I would fail because I don't want to do it. So you've got to find where you're interested. And if you're not, you got to find a way to get interested or get a new business.
Yeah. Well said, because you won't have staying power if there isn't some deeper why. Yeah. That absolutely. Well, Adam, it's been amazing. I appreciate that you're so generous with your time to talk through some of these. And obviously, we could dive deeper. We didn't even get to talk through kind of some nitty gritty, which made me think since we were talking about YouTube and consistency, if we were smart, we could do a live or do something to put out more information to our audiences. And we're going to still do a lot of that because I think it's so important, especially for not the Skip community, but the broader community, the money that's been pumped into the U.S. economy and the Canadian economy and the global economy the past couple of years for all these entrepreneurs. It's an incredible time to be an entrepreneur. Now they need to actually know the things to do to acquire customers that are actually good things to do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, that's sort of the goal of the whole YouTube channel is it's free. Like everything on there is free. There's 500 and some odd videos. I don't even know what that word out to 80 hours of content. You can sit down and not leave the house for a couple of weeks and you'll find everything on there that you could ever want to know and probably a whole bunch of stuff you don't want to know that might pay off at some point. So that's my advice is for
tell people to go binge. Are going to leave all the links to go binge on all of your
videos. Coffee or 10 and then
make a weekend. Maybe wait till
that's what your family wants to do. Watch marketing videos.
Exactly. This is what I was going to ask. You're in BC, one of the most beautiful places in the world in the summertime. In July,
the summer,
August,
yes.
In the summertime.
Yeah,
I know what the rain's like for 9 months. But appreciate that you're creating this content. If people want to put this in perspective, you're hustling every day in a gorgeous part of the world. I'm sure you're enjoying the beautiful outdoors.
Once in a while, I leave the cave. Yeah.
But I hope it's a great summer there. And Adam, I would love to, have you back on and go deeper and, keep it going. But it's really nice to meet you and learn about your story too. I think to come full circle with the pilot perspective. Being on those planes with folks who have had success, what that means, and then bringing it back to, entrepreneurs is amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast to chat.
Absolutely, Adam. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. A huge thank you to Adam for sitting down. Hope you enjoyed that episode and his incredible story. We've got more great guests coming soon, so be sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching or listening to this, and we will leave Adam's links in the description. Go check him out. And don't forget, if you want to join us for our exclusive members-only webinars, posts, and videos, go check out helloskip.com/plus and use the invite code SKIPPOD. Hope to see some of you there, and I'll see you in the next video.